Are you having trouble deciding your franchise team in NBA 2K26? Well, I'm here to help. Today, I'm going to go over 5 teams that you should consider for my NBA franchise mode inside of this year's game. This is the first of 2 parts. Today, I'm specifically focusing on teams in the Western Conference, and then I'll have another version of this video talking about teams in the Eastern Conference, and I'll leave a card at the top right of the screen once that video is up. I'm excited for another year of NBA 2K here on the channel, and I hope you guys are as well. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new for more 2K26 content. For those of you who may have missed the team reveal for the franchise series that I'll be running, I am picking an expansion team this year. However, I don't know who that team will be because there's like nobody in the uniform vault just yet. I do want to point out that I put the Suns ones in here myself because I just wanted to make sure the vault was working. Does this mean I was the first person to put anything in the vault this year? Do I get like a medal for doing that? Anyway, let's get this show on the road. There are a lot of really good choices for my NBA franchise mode this year, especially in the Western Conference, which for years has been better than the East. And now this past offseason, the West just added Cooper Flagg and Dylan Harper, the top 2 players in this year's draft class. So the very first team I'm going to go over today is the Utah Jazz, who I would say are definitely the purest rebuild in the West. I think on paper, this is probably the worst team in the Western Conference, which more so speaks to how deep the rest of the conference is. But the Jazz roster is definitely lacking behind some of the other teams, even towards the bottom of the standings. They have a lot of young guys, but I wouldn't say this is a particularly good young core. I don't think Danny Ainge has done a great job adding talented players or adding guys who fit together. Of course, they have Lauri Markkanen, who made a couple of all-star teams over the last few seasons, a guy who has shown the ability to be a high-level scorer, but last year he was really disappointing. And if he continues to play like that, then that's going to be a problem for the Jazz, given that they just signed him to a huge extension. Everyone talks about Paul George as the worst contract in the league. I think Lauri Markkanen is right up there, and he's got an extra year on Paul George as well. They've had a lot of high picks in recent years, but they haven't really hit on any of them yet. We're still waiting for guys like Taylor Hendricks and Keontae George to take that next leap. Cody Williams had a disastrously bad rookie season, but I do really like their rookie class this year. Ace Bailey, the 5th overall pick from Rutgers. A lot of people thought he should have gone earlier in terms of the pure talent. He's one of the most gifted shot-making prospects, especially at his size, that we've seen in recent memory. His lack of feel for the game and his overall inconsistency is what holds him back early on, but consistency in particular can improve over time. And then Walter Clayton, Mr. March. I think his skill set is tailor-made to be a rotation guard in the NBA, a very fun player to watch at Florida, leading the Gators to a national title. And again, I think the shot-making upside with him is really, really intriguing, and I definitely see a role for him in the NBA as a microwave scoring guard. The Jazz also have plenty of picks to build around as well. I will point out, I don't think a lot of the picks in this game are placed onto the correct teams. So hopefully they fix that. They didn't last year. But the Jazz have a good number of draft picks to where you can make this team your own pretty quickly. Other than the Lauri Markkanen contract, there are also not many big deals on the books. So it feels like you can build your own roster with this team pretty quickly. And I think the control and flexibility you have with the Jazz is what makes them a good choice this year. The second team I'm going to go over is the New Orleans Pelicans, who were really bad last year. They barely won 20-plus games. However, on paper, this roster is a lot better than a 20-win team. And if this team can stay healthy, I see no reason why they can't compete for a play-in spot in the West. The problem is, how can we trust this team to stay healthy? Zion Williamson, of course, is a fascinating case because he's a really good player, and the guys around him are quite talented. But as we look at Zion, even though he might be one of, if not the very most dominant one-on-one offensive players in the NBA, he cannot stay on the floor, and that is a problem. When he's on the floor, he's really good. I don't think people realize how good he is. When healthy, I don't think there's 10 or 15 guys I'm taking over Zion. The problem is he's rarely on the floor to begin with. He's going into his 7th season with the Pelicans, and he's only played 214 games. That's over 50% of the team's games that he's missed since he got drafted. And since he has not shown the ability to stay healthy, that really limits his value as an asset, whether that's being a player on the Pelicans or as a trade chip. Aside from him, Trey Murphy, he's turned into a good shooter. Herb Jones is a very good perimeter defender. DeJounte Murray's healthy. Jordan Poole is a wild card. Yves Missi, I thought he had a really solid rookie year. He looks like a good piece for the future. And then the two rookies they drafted in the first round this year. Jeremiah Fears is a fearless shot maker, pun intended. Sometimes that can lead to some bad decisions. However, he was a dynamic player as a freshman at the University of Oklahoma, and it's easy to see why the Pelicans liked the shot-making upside, picking him 7th overall in this year's draft. I think there's a world where he could be one of the better on-ball offensive players in the NBA if all goes right. There's a lot of development that's going to be needed, but if he hits, that could be huge for New Orleans' future. And then they went up and got Derek Queen in a trade that I strongly disagree with in the Pelicans' perspective. But Queen is a really intriguing player. I think his feel for the game as a freshman was very impressive last year at the University of Maryland. Made big plays for them throughout the year, specifically the game winner in the NCAA tournament against Colorado State. The Pelicans, though, do not have their first-round pick this year. I know it says they have 2 first-rounders. That's wrong. Atlanta should have their first-round pick. The Pelicans gave their own pick away to move up and get Derek Queen last year. Again, a move that I don't really get in New Orleans' perspective. They also don't have this Pacers pick. They traded it to Indiana a few days before the draft last year. So they don't have either of these first-round picks in real life. And again, 2K's got to fix that. But otherwise, the Pelicans have a solid arsenal of draft picks. And again, this roster really is not that bad. They've got a good group of 6, 7 guys at the top. And if Jeremiah Fears and Derek Queen can hit, this could be a fun team for the future. The Memphis Grizzlies are 3rd on the list, and they might seem like a weird choice to some, but I actually think the Grizzlies are one of the best choices for franchise mode inside of NBA 2K26 this year. This is a team who just a few years ago looked like one of the brightest young futures in the NBA. They were, I think, as high as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs, and it seemed like they were going to be a contender for years to come, and now I don't really feel that way. They still have a solid group at the top, with Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. leading the way. Both of those guys are only 26 years old. They're both at least a 90 overall. But it feels like there are issues with both of their games that you're going to have to address. For Ja Morant, his development has plateaued severely. Through his 3rd, 4th seasons in the NBA, he looked like one of the best young players in the league, and it seemed like he was going to be one of the faces of the NBA. Now, not so much. His play over the last 2 seasons has gone downhill. He's missed games because of injury. He's missed games because of suspension. And his play style, this type of really athletic guard, these types of players generally regress quickly. So hopefully for Ja's sake, this isn't something that continues. He's only 26 years old, though. There's plenty of time to right the ship, especially if you can get more consistency from Jaren Jackson, whose offensive game has leveled up over the last couple of years, along with being one of the better defensive players in the NBA. Now, I feel like his feel for the game at times is often shaky. Not a good rebounder. He is a black hole as a playmaker. He consistently gets into foul trouble. And he's had injury history in the past, including this offseason with a foot injury. As skilled as Jaren Jackson is, being a good scorer and an elite defender, there are also moments when you're watching him and you feel like you want to peel your eyes off. The Grizzlies extended him for the long haul this offseason, so he'll be here for the next 5 years. Outside of Morant and Jackson, there are a lot of building blocks on this team. They signed Ty Jerome. They extended Santi Aldama. This team has done a really good job of finding gems. Undrafted guys, and in the 2nd round with Scottie Pippen Jr., Jalen Wells, Gigi Jackson, Vince Williams even has shown flashes. And then Cedric Coward, if he can be a hit for this team, that would be a big deal. Their lottery pick out of Washington State was a relative unknown for many, given his unprecedented path to the NBA. Started playing Division III basketball, then moved up to Eastern Washington, then 6 games at Washington State, and he goes all the way at number 11, which surprised a lot of people on draft night. His rise was fast, reminded me a lot of Jalen Williams from Santa Clara a few years ago, and, 3 years later, he was the number 2 option on an NBA title winner. The improvement that Coward has made over the last couple of years has been drastic year to year, and the Grizzlies are hoping that'll continue. They ended up adding a couple of picks from the Magic in the Desmond Bane trade, including a first-rounder this year that they used, I believe, to go up and get Cedric Coward in a trade with the Trailblazers. They have 2 more Orlando picks in 2029 and 2030. But I still feel like overall this team is just in such a weird spot because the expectation with Ja and Jaren is that they're competing for playoff spots. But both of those guys have had their own issues with injuries, consistency, in Ja Morant's case, suspensions. And while they've done a really good job of finding gems late in the first round, early in the second round, they need another big-time player. And maybe that guy is Cedric Coward. But if it's not, this team could be stuck towards the middle of the Western Conference standings, which would be a major disappointment given where they were a few years ago with one of the brightest futures in the league. Our fourth team is a little bit more outside the box, but if you've been around the channel in the past, this should make a lot of sense. That team is the Golden State Warriors. Golden State, of course, was the team that I used for NBA 2K25 here on the channel, and given that their roster is nearly identical to where it was a year ago, I like them for a lot of the exact same reasons here on 26. This team is certainly good enough to compete in the playoffs, given that they have Steph Curry, one of the greatest players ever, on their roster. But the rest of the team outside of him is not great, and they did not do a good job this offseason adding talent because they signed quite literally no one new. Of course, they did add Jimmy Butler last year at the trade deadline. I feel like I've seen this somewhere before. Where have I seen Jimmy Butler getting traded to the Warriors? Oh, that's right. I did this months in advance in the Warriors series on NBA 2K25 last year. How could I forget? Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler are both championship-level players and possibly could be a championship-level duo. The problem is Stephen Curry's 37. He'll be turning 38 years old later this season. He's one of the oldest players in the league. Luckily for the Warriors, Unk still got it. I mean, Curry really has not lost too much of a step yet, but as he nears 40 years old, that could very well change. As for Jimmy Butler, he's 36 years old. He's not much younger. Again, one of the older players in the NBA, and it feels like he is starting to slow down a little bit, but like Steph, is still very good for his age. Either one of these guys, though, could decline quite quickly at this point. Their bodies could break down. They could suffer a big injury, and, well, that goes their title hopes. Outside of Steph and Jimmy, this team really does not have a lot of exciting pieces for the future. It's been up and down with Brandon Podziemski, but he's a solid young piece. Jonathan Kuminga is back, at least in the game, on the qualifying offer, but in real life, he's not on the team. He's still in free agency. Whether you do bring Kuminga back or not is certainly an interesting discussion, given that he's obviously a talented player, but he took a step back last year, and his development has not been what Golden State would have hoped for. His lack of feel for the game, now 4 years into his career, is a little bit of a concern. Outside of those guys, what else is there in terms of young talent? Like Quentin Post? They do have control of most of their draft picks moving forward, so that's good. You can make another big move if you need to, which I think this team probably needs another spark to potentially push them over the edge, given that Steph is 37, Jimmy Butler is 36, and I don't see a young guy on this roster other than maybe Podziemski, who could consistently be a starter for a high-level team in the future. But Pod certainly is not there yet. In terms of some honorable mentions before we get to our final team, we'll start with the Sacramento Kings, who have done their absolute best to build the best play-in roster possible. Well, if you're going for an NBA title, that's not really what you're looking for. This team has some good players, Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Keegan Murray, but the Kings are stuck in mediocrity, and I don't see a way out. I think you can make an argument for both of the LA teams. The Lakers might be a little easy because they have Luka, who's one of the best players in the league and only 26 years old. The Clippers don't have that luxury, so I think they'd be a little bit more interesting. Kawhi Leonard and James Harden are both still really good. Neither of those guys are really regressing at all, but they're 34 and 36 years old respectively. This Clippers team was really good last year. I thought at times they were the second best team in the Western Conference, but with an older group, much like the Warriors, things could slip quickly. The Dallas Mavericks might be a little bit easy, but I think they're one of the most interesting rebuilds in the game this year. Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving are at the back end of their primes, but neither of them have slowed down in terms of production at all. Both of these guys have won titles before. They're good enough to do it again, especially with the addition of Cooper Flagg, the number one pick in this year's draft and one of the best prospects in recent memory. I think his skill set is fit to play a role as the third or fourth guy on a team like the Mavericks right away, with the upside to potentially be more. This team certainly has high expectations to win this year. But the final team I'm going to pick, in my opinion, is the best team for franchise in this year's game, and that's the Phoenix Suns. Had I not chosen an expansion team, the Suns would have been my choice for NBA 2K26. I think they are the perfect rebuild team this year for a lot of different reasons. I think this team is not going to be very good this year, and they're certainly not set up well to win in the future. But they do have Devin Booker, who is still very good, 91 overall, 28 years old, so you've still got plenty of time with Devin Booker, given that he is still certainly in his prime. Booker has made the finals before as the number one option in 2021, but the roster around him was obviously a lot better. Devin Booker and the Suns agreed to a big extension this offseason. Selfishly, as a Pistons fan, I was pretty disappointed when he signed that deal because I want him in Detroit, but it looks like he's sticking around for the long haul. The question is, will anybody else on this roster stick around with him? They got Jalen Green in the Kevin Durant trade, and obviously there's a lot of question marks with Jalen Green, given that he has shown the flashes, but he hasn't really gotten better from his rookie season to now, where he's on his second contract. Maybe the change of scenery can help him out a little bit now in Phoenix, less pressure to win right away. He was practically out of the rotation by the end in the playoffs with the Rockets last year, so this is a low-pressure environment that could help him out. Mark Williams is really talented when healthy, and I really like their rookie class. Kaman Malawach, the 10th overall pick from Duke, I thought showed a lot of good things with the Blue Devils as a freshman. I think the offensive skill set is really intriguing for the future, even if he's raw right now. But I think once he gets a little bit older, the potential could be really fun with him. I thought they also added a couple of really good impact players in the second round. Rasheer Fleming, he was not supposed to fall to the second round. I was really surprised he didn't go in round one. I thought he could have been a lottery pick. I think he's going to be really good with Phoenix. And then Kobe Brea as well, really good catch and shoot guy. Overall, though, it's not a very good roster. There's a lot of question marks outside of Devin Booker. There's not many proven players here. The Suns also do not have many of their draft picks. Pretty much through the rest of the 2020s, they do not control their own first-round pick, which means if they're really bad, they're probably not going to be able to use that pick towards the top of the draft. It also severely limits their flexibility in terms of making trades, so it's going to be hard to add another impact player without trading away a guy like Devin Booker, and given that he just signed his extension 2 months ago, that seems kind of unlikely. So the storylines with this Suns team, I feel like, are really interesting, and that's why I think they are the best team for franchise mode in 2K26. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new for more 2K26 content. Peace out.